Welcome to another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Your host, Eddie Allen, my man, Mr. J. Lou, and my man, Mr. G. Witt on the road. What's happening, Mr. J. Lou?
How you doing there, Ed? G. Witt on the road, joining in live and in person, and excited to talk about this draft. I can't wait until we dig in it to today.
Man, it's we got to talk about it because it was a lot of interesting picks by the Titans. There you go. Thank you, G. Witt. A lot of interesting picks by the Titans. You know, you can agree one way or you can disagree the other. Did they really address the needs of this football team in this 2021 draft?
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. My thing on it is I thought they did some important needs. If there was a disappointment for me, it was probably in the fact that we didn't get a tight end. That was the one position I was hoping we would grab in the draft, but obviously their plans are something different. But overall, with the defensive players they picked up plus the offensive players, I thought they did a pretty good job.
What about you, Mr. J. Lou?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I know, when you look at your social media world, you got these Titan fans that are so great at football knowledge who hated the draft. But I sit here and think about it, and we cried as fans for a whole 17 weeks plus playoffs about this defense. And what did they do? Go out there and blow it up and draft it all defense. Now, granted, they didn't take the sexy picks with the wide receivers or whatnot like you would think they would do. But I think when you look at the overall, what they were trying to build with this team, as G. Witt said the last couple of weeks, they are trying to right the ship from 2020. If I was disappointed in one pick, and again, it didn't fall the way, but I still think the undying need on this team is backup quarterback. And that wasn't addressed.
Yeah.
In the draft, but overall, I feel pretty good with the guys they did select.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is, and I agree with you on the backup quarterback, is that they really didn't address the slot receiver. Who else is gonna be able to? Now you can play Ferguson in there. Yeah, we got that skill. He's got that skill set to play in the slot, to play in the seam, to run those routes, to go across the middle. But you still need that guy that's going to be able to run those good, quick routes across the middle, get open real quick, make those third down crucial catches across the middle. Now, A.J. Brown does that well, but, he's going to get a lot of attention because of how he plays and who he is. But we'll see about Josh Reynolds, what he brings to the table, which I think he'll bring a lot of good play and good playmaking ability to the table. But again, you don't have that guy. And out of receivers we got, I don't see one that's that caliber of receiver so far. These are big guys that can run, stretch the field in some cases, maybe a good tough 5 yards if you need them. But I don't see a guy or a need that was addressed for that particular reason or that skill set. So, it is what it is. It was a good draft defensive-wise. I agree with you, Mr. J. Lou. They addressed a lot of needs on that side of the ball. And you saw J-Rob and Vrabel, they were consistent on rebuilding this defense from what it was last year, particularly the secondary, which you got to give them credit. And some of these picks that I'm really excited about it. We'll get into it and talk about it. So, right off the top, you got Caleb Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. And, I'll start with you, Mr. J. Lou. What do you think about Mr. Farley and what he brings to the table? Because we kind of talked about him last week on the show, and it's just a surprise to us that they picked him in the first round.
Yeah, and I think they're reaching back for some of that. First of all, these NFL teams probably got some of the best doctors, physicians in the world.
Oh yeah,
got access to more medical than we do
right.
Him regular. And so you would have to think that they've crossed T's, dotted all I's on Farley. I think that he can replicate what we got from Big Jeff when we drafted him. Now, a knee is a lot different than a back, of course, but
right.
Both of these guys had top 5 talent and dropped in the draft. So right. I think that you allow him to come along. And again, a lot of people think when you really read his story, he hurt his back, if I'm not believing, deadlifting weights. And he's cut that out of his lifting program. So it wasn't a play or anything that really hurt him. Now, again, you're worried about those injuries. But if he's healthy, and again, it's an if with every draft pick, but if he's healthy, he by far is the top talent in the draft. I mean, he has the necessary speed to cover, and he's great for what this defense wants to do. To me, I think he's what we were hoping that we would have saw from Adoree. Somebody with good speed on the outside, can really get up and play man to man. And if you've seen him again, he's young at the position that he's done. But at Virginia Tech, he really balled out in the games he played. So I'm very intrigued by this pick.
G, can you talk to us, man?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, my only thing about that pick, and I think if he's coming healthy, I think he's going to be great because, again, like Mr. J. Lou said, the NFL has some of the best doctors in the world. And if I found out that the Titans were not the only team who had medically cleared him as far as being one of those type of players that could come in and make a contribution. But backs, as I can tell from personal testimony, backs are really tricky. So that's the only concern I have with it. But other than that, watching the tape on him, very much a dynamic player, very much a playmaker. The fact that he actually started off on offense and then came over to defense, played wide receiver, played quarterback, has a good idea, good knowledge of being able to read routes and everything. I think and he's a ball hawk. That's the one thing we definitely need on that defense, especially in the secondary. We need a ball hawk, somebody besides Kevin Byard. And I think he's going to be a big contributor to that. So I'm looking forward to seeing him work. And they said he's going to be ready by training camp. I think if he is, then definitely we got the steal of the draft once again.
Yeah, and I agree with you both. He brings a lot of tangibles to the field. He's big, he's long, he can run. 6 foot, 297 pounds. That's big for a cornerback. And these days you need big cornerbacks because the receivers are getting bigger and bigger and faster and stronger. Great straight line closing speed. Again, his weakness is his health. I agree with you guys. He can improve in tackling. And again, Mr. J. Lou, you already mentioned he's young in the position, 2 years playing cornerback at Virginia Tech. And so, like you said, if he turns out to be 100% healthy, ready to go, I agree with you. He is the steal of the draft. He was a top 5 talent. They had him that way. Of course, he was rated lower. He went lower because of his health status. And so they're thinking, and like we all are thinking, that if he can turn out to be another Jeffrey Simmons as far as his health goes, man, we got another good baller for that defense, which, at cornerback position, where we revamped the whole team. That's a great ad with his young talent, those ball skills that he brings to the table. And so
absolutely. And just to go along with that, the one thing we have to remember too, really this type of pick is consistent with what J-Rob does. He drafted Corey Davis and he had some injury issues. He drafted Jeffrey Simmons and now he's done this again. So he does his homework on players who have injuries and everything, and they do a good job medically making sure that they're able to clear them and get them ready to go. So in that regard, you got to have a little confidence in what J-Rob is doing because he's consistently picked these type of players who've actually come in and been big contributors to the team.
Right, exactly. And so for the second pick, again, we're looking at the draft, and just to let everybody know, we're texting back and forth. We're talking about different things. And, lo and behold, they go offensive line and they go Dylan Radunz, offensive tackle out of North Dakota State, FCS talent. And so, what to say? The guy looks aggressive. He's got a good description of being aggressive and toughness, but a lot of people say he's average in his athletic traits. And he only played against the FCS competition. And so the level of competition is a concern, but, he's a big guy. He's 6'4", 301 pounds. Looks like he can move pretty good for his size. But G. Witt, what do you think about this number 2 pick?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I like the pick. Mainly because, one of the advantages he has and where he came from, it's an FCS school, of course, but they run a pro-style offense.
Right.
That's the reason why they continue to send players to the league. They're one of the few schools that still run a pro-style offense. And he played left tackle. Yep. And so, they're talking about moving him to right tackle. And his biggest issue right now is going to be just like any rookie tackle coming in, is being able to handle the speed rush of the NFL. While I get everybody's thing about competition level and all that, but to me, football is football. If you can ball out at the FCS level, then you can definitely ball. There's been plenty of players come out of FCS and ball out in the league. We got a couple of them on the team. Kevin Byard was one of them. I mean, Middle Tennessee, even though they're Division I, they're not a big Division I school, and he's still been able to ball out. So level of competition, I'm not worried about. I think it was a great pick, especially when you want that competition at right tackle. If he earns it, you know he's ready to play.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll echo what Mr. G. Witt said. I'll tell you what we saw in this draft, and we'll see it with the remaining picks. This was the Titans, J-Rob and the scouting team going back to the pre-COVID drafts. And by that I say Dillon is somebody that they spent the offensive line coach and the GM spent a lot of time with him down at the Senior Bowl week. And he was the practice player of the week for the Senior Bowl. So they got to see up close and personal. And again, it's just 1 week, but they got to see him against some of the top D1 talent at the Senior Bowl practice. And I think that went a long way with this pick. Moving him to right tackle, I think that's somebody that you can plug in. And he's seems to be a great run blocker and offensive tackle. And when you think about the type of quarterback that he was protecting, Trey Lance is one of those. He went number 3 in the draft. So I think the athleticism is there. As G. Witt said, the competition, because right now we don't have right tackle. And if you can plug him in and bring him along, we know we're gonna run the ball. That's our MO to do first.
Absolutely.
If he can block running and we slowly bring him along in pass and give him a little bit of tight end help on pass protection, I think this guy's gonna be. He can solidify. You got to think about it. When we back in 4 or 5 years ago, we had the number 1 offensive line because our bookends were all pros.
That's right.
And so if we can get back to that level, it can really get this offense cranking. But I truly love this pick of Mr. Dillon in the second round.
Yeah, and plus,
Absolutely.
like G. Witt said, he played in a similar scheme that the Titans run. That utilizing the gap and inside zone running schemes, and so it won't take much to get him up to speed, and he could possibly be the day one starter, week 1 starter, excuse me. If he comes in, he practices hard, like you mentioned, J. Lou. He was practice player of the week. So he brought a lot to the table. He was throwing people around, as somebody mentioned in the comments in the chat. So, firing off the ball, good pad level, has a good core when engaging head up. And you saw in some of his highlights, he was able to get downfield. And that shows a lot of athleticism, regardless of what the experts say. And so, I like the pick too. I like the big, nasty offensive lineman. And you got to have that if you're going to run the ball the way the Titans want to run the ball, with Derrick Henry being nasty when he runs the football. And so, great pick. I agree with you guys wholeheartedly about that. And so let's move on to the third pick of the draft. Monty Rice, linebacker out of Georgia, 6 foot, 233 pounds. And I'll start with you on this one, Mr. J. Lou. Monty seems to come in and he could push Rashad Evans for his position as it stands right now.
Yeah. So this Monty Rice pick was a 2022 and beyond pick. And I say that because tomorrow's the deadline to pick up the 5th year on Rashad Evans. And if we know anything about J-Rob, he don't believe in picking up those 5th years on anybody. So I think this is a pick to you said, give him a little bit of competition. One thing that I liked about the draft, and not only with Monty, but some of the other players, as we saw last year, injuries, we had no depth on the team.
Exactly.
And I believe inside linebacker is that was a position G. Witt called out last week, is one that we needed to continue to try to get some depth there. And you bring somebody, one thing that J-Rob and this Titans organization is about, since under his leadership, they like to go after the SEC. And the SEC produces NFL ball players. So even sliding down to the 3rd round, I think he's somebody that's going to give us quality depth at inside linebacker. Somebody can push Evans. I mean, again, tomorrow, if they don't pick up his 5th year option, then he knows he's going into a lame duck year anyway. So now that you got your potential replacement right there with you, they can do nothing but hopefully you would hope elevate Evans to go back to that 2nd year play that he had and bring Rice along. But again, another quality depth pick by J-Rob and the Titans.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree with you, Mr. J. Lou, in all honesty, because I think J-Rob did a good job as far as addressing the depth of the inside linebacker. I mean, you got David Long Jr. Already, and but what you find is that one of the issues you had with the inside linebackers also was the fact that Jayon Brown is prone for injuries.
That's right.
He keeps re-injuring that shoulder. So I think what you find about him is one of the things they like about Monty Rice is the fact that he does have some cover skills,
Mhm.
especially against running backs.
Mhm.
So that's a big deal that we need to have happening because, like you said, with Rashad Evans going into his 5th year, probably won't get that 5th year option renewed. Uh, David Long Jr., who's basically a run thumper and is really aggressive as far as attacking the ball carrier. I think you got Monty Rice is going to be some added depth and also gives you a viable backup for Jayon Brown. He's not going to be as good as Jayon as far as coverage is concerned, but he will give you that option where the drop off won't be as great as it was this past season when you saw Jayon Brown get hurt and that defense just really struggled as far as coverage and as far as covering running backs is concerned.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Jaron Brown is going to be more of the nickel dime type linebacker for this football team. You might even see a safety in the box with him on the nickel situations as well. But I like Monte Rice's also. He's got a nose for the football, so don't sell him short on that because he likes to tackle. He likes to hit hard. But like you said, he can drop into coverage. He can play some man coverage, and he just got a nose for that football, man. You like that out of a guy that plays your inside linebacker. He was a defensive MVP honors. He was on the list for the top linebacker in the country for one of the finalists. And so this is not a backup linebacker. This is a guy that can come in and start week 1 as well. And I look for him to push for a starting position come week 1 in 2021 for the NFL season. So again, man, great pickup. So far, like you said, Mr. J-Lo, I agree, man. They've gone back to the pre-COVID days. They've really done their homework. J-Rob has added some talent to this defense, to this team. And this next pick was probably one of my favorites. The third pick, Elijah Molden, DB safety, 5'9.5", 192 pounds. And this guy is a ball player. He gets to the football. He makes plays. He likes to tackle, which is great. He's all over the field. He's got a good instinct for the ball. And what I really like about this guy is that he was an academic Heisman. And that tells me he is a very smart football player. And you cannot teach that, the intelligence of a football player. So he's aggressive. He's smart. And so he knows how to read coverages. Not read coverages, read routes, predetermined routes and attack the ball when the ball's in the air. And so, man, again, and here's one more thing, and I'll let you guys speak on. It was a lot of people that were drafted in this draft this year that had a lot of pedigree, NFL pedigree in their background. Again, here's another one. His dad played in the NFL as well as a defensive back, Alex Molden. And so, again, it's a lot of talent coming out, but Elijah Molden, I think this is probably my favorite pick of the whole draft. And G, what you got on Mr. Molden?
Well, and I agree with you, Eddie. I look at this pick right here, and like you said, he's an aggressive player, likes to tackle, likes to read and react very well. And the thing you like about him is that he's very smart. And if you notice, one of the trends that J-Rob is doing in the secondary, especially with the safeties, he's drafting these high football IQ safeties.
Yep.
And you see it with him, you see it with Amani Hooker, you see it with Kevin Byard. You see these guys who just have good IQ when it comes to running the defense, because what you want your secondary to be able to do is to manage not only the safeties, not only to manage the secondary as far as making sure they're in place, but also bringing up that run support
right
for the linebackers and the defensive linemen, because that's the one thing that we were missing last year. We were not getting that good run support, and we need that. So the thing you like about Mr. Molden is that not only is he very smart, but he's willing to get in there and tackle and make the plays. And that's what you want, especially if you're going to play strong safety, which means that, he's building the team to, again, like we said, he's building to continue on, even after if he had to let some players go, the drop off won't be great at all.
Exactly.
No, I agree. One of my favorite picks of the entire draft. I think this pick right here buys you time with Caleb. And I say that by meaning you can slide Molden into the slot, into the 3, and you have Jenkins and Fulton, you hope comes bounce back and put them on the outside, and there's no drop off. So I really feel like Molden we will see him playing game 1. And his instinct for the ball, if we literally get him in the slot with his smarts, I just don't understand. I don't think anybody is ready for how good this team can actually be in the backfield. Because I mean, between him and you got Byard back there as a ball hawk and all those hitters we bring, I really truly think that this was a pick that after they made their first round pick with Caleb and Elijah, again, some folks called him the steal of the draft, but
Right.
him still being on the board at that position, that will allow them to again bring their number one draft pick slowly over with his health concerns and really not lose any drop off. As I was watching the draft and you watch some of these players, I wonder just how much of Schwartz was in their heads on some of these players. Because if you think about some of this nastiness on some of this defense, it reminds you of some of these former Titans teams that Jim was a defensive coordinator on. So you wonder if him being a consultant for the team helped have his hands in some of these defensive players that they picked.
And when they drafted Molden, as soon as I saw him and I saw his information, saw his tangibles, I immediately thought slot. I was like, here's your slot corner, here's your nickel corner that you got, because Amani Hooker's now going to be starting as strong safety. Now you move Molden in and you don't lose anything. The hope is Amani continues to progress and increase in his playmaking ability, and you bring in Molden and let him play the slot, man. I'm telling you, like you said, that secondary is going to be pretty good. Along with, you hope Bud Dupree is healthy and ready to go. Danico Archie, of course, you already know what you'll get out of Jeffrey Simmons, but you still need a nose tackle that's going to push the pocket, and hopefully Tyler Tart can continue that. And that defense, again, it's going to be totally different from last year. I think we'll be able to see more of a pass rush because of Schwartz and what he's going to bring to the table and what we've added to this defense. And so, again, my favorite pick of the Titans draft, Elijah Molden. So
just to add one more thing to that, here's the one thing we got to remember also. What do the Titans like to do on defense more so than a lot of other teams? They blitz from the slot.
That's right.
And so with Mr. Molden and his intelligence and knowing how to read the offense and everything, blitzing from the slot, you're exactly right. He could do that. And like you said, he likes to bring the wood. So all of a sudden now what you were hoping for out from last year that you didn't get, hopefully that's what you're going to get this time, is a lot more capable blitzing from the slot, a lot more disguising your blitzing, not giving it away so quickly to where these running backs are picking it up. Because that's one thing that Logan Ryan did extremely well. He didn't give it away until it was time to go. And that's the thing you're going to be looking for from Mr. Molden, is that he could blitz from the slot position.
Exactly. So again, Mr. Molden at the number 3, the third round pick. So we got 2 4th round picks coming up. It was 2 third rounds, 2 4th round picks coming up after they made a trade or two. Dez Fitzpatrick, receiver out of Louisville, 6'2", 208. So I don't know what to say about this one. It was kind of a head scratcher. He's a big guy. He possesses the size for an NFL receiver. He started 8 of 13 games, and he got honorable mention, all ACC honors with 45 receptions, 699 yards, 15.5 per catch. So he can stretch the defense. He's known for his long ball routes. He got to play with Lamar Jackson a little bit, and he was second team all conference. And so, is he a route runner? Is he going to be a route runner? He's good as far as getting down the field, but can he run the intermediate routes? Can he run the crossing routes? Basically another AJ Brown, if you will. I don't know if he'll be able to run out the catch like AJ Brown and break tackles, but he definitely got the size and the strength to do so. But he's going to have to learn to run some routes as well. But Mr. Jayla, what do you say about Mr. Fitzpatrick at number 4?
Yeah, I think Fitzpatrick is a project at wide receiver, and again, a lot of the pundits had us taking receiver earlier because you wondering who we're gonna be throwing the ball to. But I think when you look at him and some of the stuff I've seen on him, he's one thing that we all can probably agree on that we're gonna miss from Corey Davis the most is his downfield run blocking.
Yes.
And Mr. Fitzpatrick, and everything that I've seen from him so far, that's where he's kind of separating himself a little bit. Again, he'll work on. I think they can get him and coach him up on running the route on the route tree and getting the right routes. But if this team is built to give the ball to deuce, and so I think you see somebody that a beast. I think you see somebody that we got that can help with blocking, and we bring him along. Again, I've been preaching it since last week. I really think that this organization is sold on Josh Reynolds being that number two. And I mean, he balled out in with the Rams last year with no real true number one. And then if you give him just a little bit more single coverage, I think the only weakness, like you said earlier, is we don't have a true slot receiver. But I think with Fitzpatrick's size, I think he has the ability to be somebody where we start bringing that third and fourth receiver on the field, that we don't lose some drop off from that standpoint. And then again, his size does allow him to get up and go get the ball.
Right.
So I mean, I look at the red zone situations. That's somebody we could throw it up there when they putting all the coverages rolling to AJ. Somebody could go up there and get the ball. So again, a project, I think, but again, I think somebody, if we really coach him up, can work out good for the Titans.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, because I think, yes, he's a project. He's got a lot to learn as far as route running is concerned. And the key is, like you said, one of the things he can do is block downfield. And that's the one thing that J-Rob pointed out in his press conference after the draft, when people were asking him about receiver, because we didn't draft any what you would call the sexy picks as far as receivers were concerned. And J-Rob even said, he said, we're looking for receivers that are willing to block, is what he was looking for. So I think that's the thing we have to look at and know. That's what they're concerned with. And he can block. One thing I will say, because of his skill, being able to get down the field, his speed, that does open it up for Josh Reynolds to also slide into the slot.
Right.
So that's another thing we can look at and think about. And I think that's going to open up the offense a little bit more, because again, he gives you that downfield threat. The question is going to be, how good are his hands?
Right.
Is he going to be better with his hands than Khalif Raymond was? Mm-hmm. And then we'll go from there. But as far as downfield blocking is concerned, because if we really look at it, that's a weakness of A.J. Brown. He doesn't block downfield extremely well, but he can do it. But if you get this guy doing it, then I think what we see is that lack of, I don't think we see that lack of drop off that we're expecting, especially with Josh Reynolds being able to go to the slot and Fitzpatrick being able to stretch the field. If he can stretch the field consistently and get open and make the catches, then I think you see the offense open up a little bit wider. I think you're going to see Tannehill throwing the ball downhill a lot more.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Good points by both of you. Fitzpatrick, that's where he does separate himself, Mr. J. Lou, his blocking ability. They had an offense that they ran a spread option. When Lamar was there, he was all over the field. So, he had to learn how to block when Lamar was there. But I give another point you made is about Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds ran a lot of those inside routes when he played for the Rams. They had him on the inside a lot. And so he's a guy that could play in the slot. He's a big body guy. He can run those intermediate routes, and he can make those tough catches across the middle. And I agree with you, G. Witt, that I think that's what they're banking on, is Josh Reynolds can move to the slot when needed to, and they just have to find another person to go out on the outside. And Fitzpatrick could be that guy to fulfill that role. And so another pretty good pick. A project has to develop, but again, he's got to step up because he can run block so far on the roster. And so as we move on to second, fourth round pick, here's another pick for me that was one of my favorites. I don't know about you guys, but if Molden was 1A, Rashad Weaver is 1B. And so he missed 2019 because he had an ACL injury. He suffered an ACL, but man, he came in after he played well. His sophomore season had 47 tackles, 14 for loss, 6.5 sacks. I'll tell you this guy lives in the backfield. In 2020, he was first team All-American, all ACC honors, 14.5 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. And so he is going to get in the backfield, 6'4", 259 pounds. And man, one thing that I like that they said about him, that he rented space in the ACC backfields in 2018 and 2020. That means he's always in the backfield. And like I said, if Molden's 1A, this gentleman is 1B. So Mr. G, so G Witt, what you say about Mr. Weaver? We lost G Witt. Go ahead, Mr. Lou.
Hey, I'd agree. Weaver is definitely, to me, he actually is probably 1A for me, Ed. And the reason I say that is because I think this pick actually brings where we can rotate those edge rushers.
Yes, sir.
And I think we all talked about it last week. There's no reason that we should have an edge rusher playing 90% of the snaps as we did last year. So I think he brings that, and he's got good hands. So
Mhm.
he's going to be able to get off double teams, etc. Now he doesn't have the force with the the brute strength, but
Right.
his hands are good. So if he combines that hands with the quickness until they teach him the rest of it, you looking at somebody that could end up getting you 7, 8 sacks.
Man.
I mean, especially if you think about him playing opposite of Dupree. And Dupree's getting the coverage role that way. I like our chances with him in a one-on-one block. So I'm with you. I think he was one of the steals of the draft, and I can't wait to be excited to see what he does from that edge rusher spot for us.
Exactly. Mr. G, with you back with us?
Yeah, I think I am, man. But and I agree with both of you. The one thing I did like about this pick was the fact that what we may see out of him, more importantly, is that Mr. Harold Landry finally gets a chance to have some breaks.
That's right.
Instead of having to play 93% of the downs
Mhm.
for the defense. So I think that's the biggest thing we get out of him. Like you said, he lives in the backfield, which is what you want. The scouts, one of the things that I noticed everybody said about him was that he was not a true 4-3 down lineman,
Right.
but we don't run a 4-3.
No.
So if he could come in and spell Harold Landry and spell Bud Dupree and actually have no drop off as far as being able to get to the pass rush and everything. My biggest concern with him is going to be his coverage of the run. I think he's going to be good at it, but I just want to see him do it because that's one of the things that also, I give Landry and Bud Dupree both credit for. They both play the run extremely well, but I think working with those guys in that outside linebacker room, he's going to pick up on that. And the one thing I'm going to say with all these picks that I like more than anything else, we're going to get to see what our coaching staff is all about.
Mhm.
Because a lot of these guys, they're good, but they're raw in a lot of areas. They got good talent. They just got to be coached up. So we're going to get to see exactly what our coaching staff can do. Our outside linebacker coach, our inside linebacker coach, especially our secondary coach, see if Mr. Midget is actually worth his salt and can do better than what he had last year because he's on the clock too.
Well, it's interesting that you bring him up because I don't think he has an excuse this year. Because now J-Rob has got you the talent, right? The secondary has been overhauled. You got some young talent. You got some veterans coming back. And so now it's up to you to coach these guys up, to get these guys in position, to get these guys tackling like they used to a couple years ago on the Kerry Coombs, to get these guys being more aggressive in their coverage and not playing so far off the ball. There's no excuse this season coming up for the guys on defense side.
None at all. And again, I keep pointing out the wild card. The wild card that we have is Schwartz. How is Vrabel going to set his pride aside and let Schwartz actually put his fingerprints on here and help bring the coaching staff along? Because I think about Rashad. I just think about these third down nickel speed packages. You can put him and Dupree out there at the same time, and who knows what they can do. So I think we can really see them generate a pass rush from that standpoint. But you got to allow Schwartz to come in and do what you signed him to do and be a good consultant without having your hands in the pot. And I think we will see some improved position coaches with that as well.
Exactly. And we're not saying, as somebody was commenting in the chat, we're not saying that Mr. Weaver was a steal, but he was a sneaky pick. I would say he was a sneaky pick for him to be at the fourth. You get this type of production in the fourth round where we got him at. I think that is a great sneaky pick for the Titans.
And again, he's a worker. That's the thing you like about him. He's a worker. Mm-hmm. And if you notice this year, what J-Rob is doing more than anything else to make up for what happened last year, he's drafting players who are football players who are workers. They're not the type of guys that are going to sit down. They want to come in, they want to play, so they're going to put in the work to be able to play. And in that regard, they're going to be instant contributors to the team, whether they get to start or whether they get to come in as a backup. They're going to be instant contributors.
Yeah, and he's bringing in playmakers, people that want to play football, like you mentioned, but they're also intelligent football players, which is very important, as we've talked about before on our show. I'm just laughing and thinking about number 33. We talked about him.
Hey, I don't bring it.
You knew I was going there. You knew I was going there.
I didn't bring it up this time.
You knew I was. So we'll move on to the next pick in the 6th round. Of course, so Race Racy McMath, is that how you say it? It is receiver out
Yes.
of
Yes.
LSU. And so one thing we talked about as far as the draft was going on, in Alabama, LSU both have turned into wide receiver U. Now, Racy McMath, I don't know much about him. Just looking at some of his information, his bio, as we was preparing for the show. Of course, he was playing behind a lot of talent there that they had at LSU. A lot of guys in front of him. He does run a 4.3. He's a big guy, runs a 4.34, 6'2 and a half, 211 pounds. Really made his niche on special teams. And so this to me, let me bring this up while I'm talking, and then I'll let you guys comment. So not only did J-Rob address the defense, but he really has addressed the special teams as well.
Absolutely.
Agency and this draft, minus the kicker, right? So he's still got to get that part worked out. But here's a player that made himself known for his special teams play. Although he's got speed and he could get out there and block as well, and he could catch and run with the ball. We saw some of his highlights. But again, his niche is probably going to be special teams if he's going to make this football team.
And that's really important, because one of the things that was missing last year on special team was the gunner. With Dane Cruikshank being out the entire season, that part of special teams was missing on the coverage team. Right. And if he could come in there on coverage and be the gunner and make the tackle, or at least direct the ball catcher to the rest of the defense to make sure they make the tackle, that's really what you want. Mm-hmm. And we missed that last year. We had nobody who could get down the field quick enough to at least hinder the running the catcher from making a move or anything. By getting down there fast, you limit his movement, and you also have a good opportunity to confine him to one side of the field. So yeah, J-Rob really did a good job with this draft, addressing really all aspects of the team, with, like you said, with the exception of the kicker. But he signed the place kicker from Ohio State as an undrafted free agent.
Okay. Well, that's good, because that was a concern, right? Mr. Taylor, what you think about Mr. McMath?
I think McMath is on the opposite side of Cruikshank. As G. Witt said, when we lost Cruikshank, that really hindered our special teams unit. And anybody looking for him to make this team as a wide receiver, that's not going to happen. This pick was solely picked and based on his special teams play, and then we groomed him to be a spell receiver. And as quiet as kept, we did sign an Ohio State kicker. I think this is where we'll see the hard-headedness in Vrabel come out. I really think they're going to give Gostkowski a shot. And the only reason I say that is I think that they think the long snapping and all might have played into it. So now I do think the leash will be a lot shorter this year for him. But I do think that they try to at least give him an opportunity to right that wrong, and they're hoping the things they've done to address special teams will help with that. But McMath is definitely that speed alone. When you got 4.3 and you're running as a gunner, we already got the best punter in the land.
That's right.
I mean, that's giving him some extra weapons out there. So I really think, again, this was a sole pick for special teams, another need that we struggled in last year that was addressed by J-Rob and this scouting team.
Exactly.
Absolutely, and I go along with you. I think as far as the place kicker is concerned, it's going to be a shorter leash. The good thing about this season coming up, if all things remain the same, is that we will have a preseason this time. Mm-hmm. So again, for everyone who hates preseason, this is the benefit of it, is that you get to see players actually function in game-like situations. Vrabel is notorious for running a Belichickian preseason, where he just does things based on game situations to see how players react, to see how they make plays. And I think that's what we're going to get to see this year that we missed last year. And I think even with the place kickers and with the punters, and the coverage team, you're going to see that happen, where we're going to see the gunners get down there and see if they're going to make the tackle. They're going to be able to direct the runner and the punt returner or the kick returner into the area where the rest of the defense is going to be, because that's all part of it when you're doing that coverage. And when we didn't have that last year with Dane Cruikshank being out, I think that's what we're looking for. And if he coaches up to be one of the top 4 receivers on the team, that's a plus. That's an added plus. Definitely. He knows how to play the position, because he went to LSU, but he just had some fundamentals. He couldn't break through the starting lineup because the talent was above him was stellar. but he still has an opportunity here to make some plays.
But I don't think it'll be many people that could break through that top talent that they had at that school. 'Cause
Oh, geez.
No.
they had some guys there, man, that was doing some unbelievable things. Joe Burrow, of course, you got to give him credit as well
Yes.
for the quarterback that he was. But they had some receivers that it made it hard getting on the field. You had to be special to get on the
Yeah.
field. And I agree with you. The speed, you can't coach speed, and so
No.
if you can coach him up to run some routes and to get on the field, and I have to agree with Lamonte Morton, man. Thank you for joining us tonight. I like the big receivers around AJ Brown. So if one thing, the Titans are going to have the biggest receivers in the NFL. So that's great. You need that size. You need those bodies that can go across the middle. One thing they did say about McMath, and I'll say this, is that he secures the catch through the bodies banging on him. So that's what you get when you get those big body receivers. They can make those tough catches and take those hits from those safeties and still, maybe pick a few yards, maybe break some tackles and break loose. So knowing if he gets the ball in his hands open field, it's not going to be too many people that's going to catch him.
Exactly.
So, good job again you got to give props to J-Rob and the scouts for this draft. They did a really good job in their homework, getting the talent that we got. And so the next pick, again, I like this one because he's another special teams guy, made his niche in special teams. Brady Breeze, safety out of Oregon, 6 foot, 197 pounds. And really all Pac-12 special teamer, 4-game starter as a junior, had a couple of interceptions and pass breakups. But again, he's got a nose for the football. One thing they said about him, and he plays like his hair is on fire. So what does that mean? That means he's all over the field. He's aggressive to the football. He's instinctive. He finds the ball. He makes plays when the opportunity comes towards him. And so again, but another pickup for this special teams. And what did you guys think about Mr. Brady Breeze?
Go ahead, Mr. J. Lou.
So I tell you about Breeze, and this goes back to what you were saying, Ed, about the talent in the draft and how the scouts have to really do it. This is somebody who was the Rose Bowl defensive MVP who got drafted in the 6th round. So he was a good player for Oregon. And I think one thing I liked about the 6th round picks, usually we've seen the Titans history, the 6th or 7th round, be throwaways of quarterbacks from Hawaii. Right. We didn't do that this year. We actually drafted for need. And I think both of these gentlemen that we drafted will see the field on special teams while allowing them to be that depth. I mean, he's the fourth, fifth safety on the team who can play the position, just needs a little bit of coaching. So I really think that what you saw this year from the draft and all the players we took, the Titans organization really paid attention at the Senior Bowl. I think a majority of our picks came from those that was at the Senior Bowl. So you're talking about talent that played 4 years of college ball, if not more. So they've been coached up. They're not early juniors and sophomores coming out. Right. So I really like that you got what we've called football players. So I think Mr. Brady, again, we redefined the defense. That was a check mark that we need to do. We've redefined special teams. Right. I think we're just hoping that we can add a few pieces to offense and we stay where we're at on offense. And this team is right back to where it was. I mean, let's not forget, we went 11-5 with the worst defense on the planet.
Yeah.
So if you can, you can fix those two things and not have a significant drop off of offense, this still is a contender for years to come. And the other thing that G-Whit pointed out earlier, he built this team for where if we have to go through this salary crunch, we're not having a big talent drop off. So that's kudos to the team for what they drafted.
Absolutely, and again, to go along with what everybody's saying, Mr. Breeze here, the thing you like about him, okay, for one, he plays special teams at Oregon, so he's got some pretty decent speed because them jokers can run at Oregon. The thing you like about him though is he loves football, and when you're the Rose Bowl MVP on defense and you play special teams, that means you're not afraid to get in there and tackle. You're not afraid to get in there to get the ball out. So what you want to, a lot of people criticize this pick, really saying they really didn't understand it. But as we've been saying, J-Rob drafted for the need of special teams. Also a guy who could come in and give you a spell as far as one of the inside linebackers being willing to make the tackle. No, he's not going to be the most talented player out there, but he's a worker. And that's the thing about it. You can't get past the fact that the people he drafted are workers.
Right.
These are guys who are used to earning their way on a team. Then nothing's been handed to them, and they've worked their way into in the positions they played in college. So now they're going to have to do the same thing here. Again, we're getting ready to see the value of our coaching staff. Can they get these guys ready to play? Is Vrabel willing to be the CEO and judge these people? Is he ready to play?
Right, exactly.
That's what he's going to look at. Is he ready to play? Because they want these players to come in and contribute game one. So you got a preseason this year. You get the opportunity to see them play, to see them in game situations. And I think all 6 of these guys that we drafted will be seeing some playing time game one. Some of them going to work their way in later, but you will see them on the field by the end of the season. If we're ready for football and playoff football, I think what you're going to see is a lot of players that people didn't know about, once again, making plays like we did 2 years ago.
Exactly, man. I want to say something else about Mr. Breeze, because I really like the descriptions they use for this guy. And so they say he leads with his chest to body and thud as a tackler. You gotta love that, man.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He feels angles when running to the alleys. Adequately filling the angles, filling the holes. He doesn't overrun the play, is what they're saying. He has the perfect mentality of special teams bulldog. And here's my favorite, man. And you got to understand what this means. So he says he was a designated torpedo as a kick return blocker, wiping out opponents. And so you need those guys on your team that just like to hit, just to like to hit. So you can't teach people to do that. You can't teach people to be physical. You can try to coach them up all you want. Either they're gonna want to do it or they're not gonna want to do it. And so it's just a mentality to have. But you gotta like it. I like the draft overall for the Titans. Yeah, everybody's gonna be mad that we didn't get Elijah Moore or we didn't get Tommy Tremble. Of course, he was picked before we got up to our pick.
Yeah,
we didn't get a tight end. We didn't get a sexy receiver, as we talked about. But I think we did pretty good as far as bringing in football players, like you said, G-Wit, smart football players. We got some young guys with some speed that wants to play football, that are playmakers, that can play. We got a nasty offensive lineman. We got a linebacker that can tackle, that can go sideline to sideline. And so what else do you want out of this draft? Now, I don't think they're finishing in the free agency. I really think they're going to address that right tackle in free agency again. And then you might get a tight end or 2 picked up as well. And so if I had to give a grade for this draft, I'm going to give them a B+. Because of the people they brought in. Yeah, it's not an A because they didn't, to me, go after a higher tier receiver. Not saying that we didn't get one that could fulfill that role as a more of a playmaker, because we have the potential there. But I'll give them a B+ for what they've added and how they address not only the defense and some of the holes on the offense, but the special teams as well. And so, Mr. G-Wit, what you got for your overall draft grade for the Titans in 2021?
Well, I'm usually the highly critical one. So, and I'll be honest with you, I'll give them a B. And the only reason I give them a B on this one really is just simply because of the injury to Caleb Farley. I want to give him a B+, but I got to give him a B because I got to see exactly what he's going to bring, and hopefully by training camp. But overall, this was a solid draft class that they got going this year. And the one thing we talked about last week, leading up to the draft, this was a draft to where you build your team. Right. And I think that what J-Rob and Mike Vrabel have done in this draft is built their team. They've added players who are going to eventually be able, let's call it what it is. They're eventually going to be replacement players. If you can't hang on to Jayon Brown, you got somebody that's going to be able to replace them, and you won't have that big of a drop off. Same thing with Rashad Evans. So you got an opportunity for replacement players to come in, and you don't have that significant drop off. Because remember last year, losing those players, the drop off they didn't want to happen actually happened. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it happened simply because they picked the wrong players. Right. They picked players that did not want to come in and work. Yep. What did they do this year? They did the exact opposite. They went out and got players who want to play football. None of these, again, we've seen for years good guys who were decent football players. They were not football players. We had guys who played football. What he's been good at drafting are good guys who are football players, guys who want to play the game. And I think that what he did in this draft and what he's done so far in free agency is actually got guys who are good guys, but they are straight up football players. And when they get on the field, it's all about football. And they're going to work their way into the game. They're going to work their way into playing the way that they need to play so that this defense can actually go out there and make some stops and give this offense a chance to work with short fields instead of having to drive 75, 80 yards every time. You know what I mean? So I think we got a good opportunity. And if this, I'll go back and say it again. If Darrington Evans comes to play, then I think we're going to be in great shape as far as running the ball, because that's going to take a lot of pressure, one, off of Derrick Henry, and also it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of you gentlemen. I give him a B plus. And again, I think this was the redemption draft. He literally wanted to go in and forget about 2020. And he did that. He really went out and got to G Witt's point, football players. I agree. I think that when you see that from free agency, we did the exact same thing. He's not done. June 1st is right around the corner. There's still some decent veteran tight ends out there. I'd keep my eye on a potential deal with Zach Ertz out of the Eagles. That's one that I'd keep my eye on. I'd also, quiet as it's kept, I wouldn't be.
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, don't let the smoke screen fool you about Julio. As quiet as it's kept, I would think that there might be something there. Now again, June 1st, his pay comes down a little bit on how it would hurt the team, but anybody can get up under the cap. We've seen the Saints who somehow magically under the cap and they didn't have no money. But I think we really drafted players that we will see push folks. It's going to be a tough decision every Sunday to get your starting 55. Like, I mean, and when you think about it, the 55, the dress, or 47, how many they dress, it's going to we really got some players that's going to make the matchups unique. Now, some of these guys that we drafted are definitely going to make their niche, making the team on special teams. And I think it puts a lot of the second year and third year players that we have on the team currently, it puts them on notice.
It does.
I really look forward to training camp. Getting back to normal and seeing training camp, because that's where you're really going to start separating some of these ones who really is still on this team who don't want to play football. And I think the draft has done that. So I give him a B plus on that grade. I see about 3 to 4 players out that we drafted that could be day one starters and come in and play game one. So look forward to
absolutely.
Exactly. I want to say this because we just got this in chat from old Alfonso Anderson. And Mr. J. Lou, I know you don't know Big Al. Big Al is a Patriots fan, and he's putting that Patriots Nation for life, man. So shout out to Al, man. Thank you for joining us. Leave that Patriots stuff out of here, man. This is Tennessee Titans we talking about. I'm just kidding, man.
But hey,
good to see you, man.
But hey, just going along with it, I just had to look it up because I wanted to see if they, where they haven't made it official yet, but the rumors as far as who they're signing as undrafted free agents, you got Shannon Herring from BYU, offensive lineman. You got this is the guy I'm interested to see, Naquan Jones, not Daquan, but Naquan, defensive tackle out of Michigan State. He knows how to play defense. They went for a fullback, Torrey Carter, LSU, and tight end. And I'm looking forward to seeing this guy, Mr. Forrestall from Alabama, who I noticed was a really good tight end as far as catching the ball downfield. You already he knows how to block because Nick Saban is running the ball. Another defensive lineman, Justice Reed from Virginia Tech. And also another tight end, Briley Moore from Kansas State. Didn't get to see him play, so I don't know too much about him. And the kicker, of course, Blake Hobble from Ohio State. And another offensive guard, Cole Benwatt. He knows how to play. He went to Iowa. So, they're doing a good job. They also signing a punter, but we already know who the punter is going to be. So that's not that big of a deal. So, but those are potential undrafted free agents that they're looking at. And that's a pretty good class as far as I'm concerned. A fullback, if he comes in to put Mr. Blessingame on notice, what they did once again, competition at all positions.
Yeah.
They're straight competition. And we know, the one thing we do know, Let's just be honest about it. The one thing we do know, Vrabel has been consistent with it. If you practice well and show good play time in games, you will see the field.
Oh, yeah,
He doesn't care.
Oh,
He doesn't care. So let's be honest with Christian Fulton. If he's balling out, he's gonna see the field. But if not, he's gonna be a backup, and you're gonna watch a rookie come in and take your spot. Yeah. That's the way it is here. Your seniority means nothing in this organization right now.
So to me, who been put on notice also is Kevin Johnson. We already got our reservations about Kevin Johnson.
Oh yeah,
yes.
With the pickup for Mr. Molden, and you know, I think now he's been put on notice.
Hey, look, he might not make the cut. Let's just be real about
right.
it.
Yes,
he might not make the cut. Exactly. Rashad Evans has been put on notice. So, let's be real about it.
It is. No, I agree with you.
Let's look at this. There is no way in your defense should a cornerback be the number 2 tackler on your defense. There's no way that should be happening. So Rashad Evans, Jayon Brown, they've been put on notice. You got to start making your tackles, man. You got to quit missing these gaps. You got to start going to the ball and making the tackles like you're supposed to. Quit getting out of your lane when you're playing against Lamar Jackson and you're supposed to be holding down center field and you go to the left or to the right and leave a gaping hole in the middle. That's not your job.
I think that's where you'll see Swartz be valuable to this football team.
Absolutely.
Guys
absolutely.
Up, taking the right angles, fitting the right gaps, playing the right scheme. Shane Bowen might be the defensive coordinator. But we know Swartz's hand is going to be all over it. And his aggressiveness and his mentality that he coaches with these guys, especially getting to the quarterback. Guys, thank you for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie Arnell, Mr. J. Lou, Mr. G Witt. G Witt.
Tighten up, baby.
That was our draft recap, man. Thank y'all for the comments, the questions, and supporting the show. We'll be back next week or the week after. We'll let you know. The schedule release is on May the 12th. We like to break down the schedule, so we'll definitely have a breakdown show of the schedule. We'll break it down in quarters like we normally do and talk about the schedule and what it looks like and our thoughts and comments on each team. And one of the chats said that by week 9, Swartz to be the DC. Thank you, Lamont.
But again, you got to put that coaching staff on notice, man, because, you know, people kept talking about the players and everything. I'm like, look, you got to coach them up. You got to have them ready. And if they're still making the same mistakes, that means your coaching staff is not doing their job.
Exactly.
Let's just be real about it.
Exactly.
So the coaching staff has got to be on notice as well. Like one thing we do know, J. Rob is saying to him, here's your talent. That excuse is gone.
Exactly. like we said earlier in the show, the talent is now on this football team. You have really now, to me, and this is my opinion, the offense is talented, right? We said last year the offense was a Super Bowl caliber offense. I'm not saying the defense is a Super Bowl caliber, but it's a way better.
Oh, yes.
It was last year, even on paper. Now, of course, we got to see what that's going to turn into, but at least we know we got some players that can get to the football, that can make plays, that can rush the passer. Again, I love Danico Autry. I love it. I love that pick. That is, to me, the biggest signing on free agency. You know, Bud Dupree is Bud Dupree. We know he can get to the passer. His health is a question. But if you intermingle the Weavers and the Moldens along with the Rice and and some way Caleb Farley plays week 1.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Man,
absolutely.
This it's got the makings of one of the top defenses in the NFL. I'm not gonna say it is. I'm not gonna be like last year, G Wig. You know, we get people. You know, the defense gonna be at least they got Clowney. We're not saying that because we got to see it first. We know.
Yeah.
We got to show up and play first, and hopefully we get to see that in preseason. This year going forward. So
yeah, and to go along with that, man. Again, if they can just raise their game, even if you are a mid-level defense, if our offense doesn't drop off too far, drop out of the top 10,
right.
Again, if you get on a roll, you are a Super Bowl caliber team. Let's just be real about it. It a lot of times it's just a matter of getting on a roll.
Yeah.
You get on the roll and just play solid football each week in and week out, you can be in the Super Bowl. And look about all you got to do is look at Tampa Bay. All you gotta do is look at Tampa Bay from last year. They got on the roll at the right time at the end of the season and made it all the way to the bowl and couldn't be stopped.
Yeah.
Everything was clicking.
And Mr. J. Luke can attest to this. We talked about that on the midweek heat, that during the bye week, Tampa Bay went in at 7-5. You know, there was a lot of turmoil between the coach and the quarterback. And then all of a sudden, what happened? They came out and the offense changed. Right. The offense changed to suit the quarterback.
Uh-huh.
And the defense was balling. And they didn't lose another game, like you said. So
Didn't lose another game.
Hey, look, let's be real about it. That's if you just stop and think about it, that's what happened to the Titans 2 years ago.
Yes.
You know, the bye week happened, we came back, and all of a sudden we were rolling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we came back and we just straight up balled out, and that's what you want to see.
Right.
And again, I think with this defense and everything, if they all come together, you ain't got to worry about as long as you ain't got to worry about players like they're going out, you know, everybody else is staying inside. They're going to a party over at TSU, thinking about jumping out of a second-story window, or a guy who decides that although I signed, I'm not going to show up at training camp on time, you know, or you got a guy who's like, I want to play, but I don't want to play. Okay, you're going to sign me for $12 million, give me $1 million roster bonus. Yeah, I'm going to come in and play, and I'm going to be undisciplined because I'm just not going to do what I need to do because I'm not fully healthy, and this is just who I am. So you got all these things out the window. J-Rob, Amy Adams-Strunk is basically telling Coach Vrabel, okay, you got your talent. What's your coaching staff going to do? Mm-hmm. And all this is on them. Bottom line. If they bring in these undrafted free agents that I listed, you know, that defensive tackle from Michigan State, I'm anxious to see him play, man. Because you know Michigan State, if nothing else, they know defense.
Hard-nosed.
Hard-nosed defense.
Yeah.
And I want to see the defensive player, the defensive lineman from Virginia Tech, to see how he is. I mean, last year's draft class who's still on the roster, the 4 players, they're all on notice. They're all on notice.
Yes.
And letting you know, like, we're not, that's what I like about J-Rob. You know, his mentality is we're not standing still. Again, like we said, he had to make up for last year. And that's what we're seeing. So, you know, the only person who actually didn't have to worry about anything, Darrington Evans. That's the only position they really didn't address. They didn't bring in another running back. They brought in a fullback.
Right. I'm laughing, man, because the chat is blowing up. Dion, there you go, man. Where you been? Dion finally decides to get on the show.
What did Dion say?
Dion said, he says the biggest addition in the offseason, in his opinion, is Jim Schwartz. In the group, Jim Moore is one of the bigger ones. And he was asking about those undrafted free agents, Grover, and then he said Daquan's little brother, Naquan. Thank you for getting on with us, Di. We missed you, man. So, again, thank you for joining us tonight for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie Arnell, Mr. J. Lou, my man, Mr. G. Witt. I gotta give you Mr. G. Witt as well, man. It flows better. Don't forget to check out the midweek heat. Mr. J. Lou is on that show. You're going to hear G. Witt on there as well. We got that show coming up this week. We're going to talk about some of the draft picks amongst other teams in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll get that out there. But, yeah, check us out, man. That podcast is on all the podcast listening platforms. So for your pleasure to when you want to listen to it. But, again, thank you for the love support of the show. And I'm not going to say that Carlton because we're not going to get on this subject tonight.
Is he talking about the Bears?
He's talking about Clowney.
I should have known. Yeah.
Clowney is in Cleveland, so we don't worry about it.
Again, so join us next time for the next show. Look out for that time and that date, man. We'll be putting it out there. But we are out of here tonight. Peace.
Peace.